right now, as it looks, there's 3,700 households that are going to be out on the streets with nowhere to go. And when I mean there's nowhere to go, there's nowhere to go.
Hey, it's Jordan. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio,
Tumwa, Iowa.
Please support the only independent outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up.
My name is Jason Peters, reporting live for Status Coup. We are in Canton, North Carolina, in the beautiful home of one Tommy Miller from Operation Rising Sun. He is an Army veteran who has been helping out with hurricane relief throughout the area and at home here in Canton. So thank you for talking to us.
Yes, sir.
So talk me through Hurricane Helene. Obviously, we're a few months removed, and now we're into the winter months, but when did you first hear about this storm coming to this area, and then what was your initial reaction?
We heard about it maybe a week and a half or so before it got here. And I don't think any of us were expecting it to be so bad. In 2021, Hurricane Fred was here and it flooded our town. But I mean, it flooded it pretty good, but we were just still kind of like, oh, I don't think we're gonna get it as bad as, Hurricane level 5, That's maybe a week and a half, and we started kind of preparing for it. And my wife and I got food, and we got the normal hurricane stuff, But yeah, about a week and a half.
And then talk me through the day of. You are Army veteran. You talked about landing helicopters.
Yeah.
What was the process when this disaster hits? How did you get into relief?
Well, my good friend Russ Connor called me from Warrior Clan. It's a veterans organization that we've been a member of for quite some time. He was like, I need your help to go and do some wellness checks, and they had a list from the sheriff's department of people that were missing or nobody could call. And then my friend Jared from Northern Virginia, he called me and asked me if I can get me a plane full of goods. Can I get it to North Carolina and get it to the people? And I was like, absolutely. So that's really what got me into the relief.
And then talk me through the day of the hurricane hits. What is it like on the ground in Canton?
It was chaos. I mean, really everybody was out trying to figure out what was going on. Nobody had the internet service, the phones were out, so nobody knew where to start or, what actually happened. We didn't even know what happened several blocks down the road, We didn't know there was complete, failure of the Pigeon River. We didn't know that there were houses that are still underwater. We didn't know that, any of that had happened. We just thought the Pigeon River crested and it flooded our downtown. We had no idea what happened in Burnsville or Swannanoa. We had no idea what happened in the Rivers Arts District in Asheville. It was just, chaos and being blind to it all. That's what basically the first day was like.
When did you start to see a governmental response? When's the first time that somebody talked to you or you saw somebody on the ground?
When we were doing welfare checks, when I crossed the Pigeon River for the first time, and I saw the first debris field with Homeland Security and FEMA working the debris field, trying to see if there was anybody or cars that was in that one debris field. The bridge was completely taken out, so one side of it was gone. So they were down working in that was the first time I saw government in our area.
So you mentioned FEMA. Today, Monday, a lot of people already were evicted from hotels because their FEMA vouchers ran out.
Yes.
What do you think is going to happen to them? Is there going to be temporary housing provided? Is there a chance to get those stays extended?
That's what we're working on right now. There's a group of people that are fighting for it as we speak. Some local volunteers and from local organizations have stood up. And this is the second time that they've done it. And they're, going back and forth with Tom Tillis, who's a senator from North Carolina, and everybody they can get their hands on to change this outcome. Right now, as it looks, there's 3,700 households that are going to be out on the streets with nowhere to go. And when I mean there's nowhere to go, there's nowhere to go. You know, there's no rental properties. The Code Purple statutes for Asheville and Buncombe County, there's only a couple of homeless shelters that can take these people. So these people were literally going to either be in their cars, squatting somewhere.
As we've driven through North Carolina, specifically the Asheville area, Western North Carolina, WNC, as I've learned to call it, it seems like RVs have been like the go-to temporary solution for lots of people. We saw them in Waynesville. We saw them in, where were we today? Oh, we saw them in Waynesville. We saw them in Clyde. You just see them when you're driving on the highway. You see them. You can look off into every town and see an abundance of RVs. How have people managed to get so many donated? There has been an abundance of just goodwill that we've come across in Western North Carolina. Is it something about the Appalachian community that there's just an outpouring of generosity?
Yeah, Western North Carolina, in my opinion, is what got me to move here when I retired out of the Army. It's just that good of a place to live. Everybody around here is just good people, you know, and everybody kind of knows that. But getting the campers in, I honestly, like, I couldn't tell you other than, like, you know, it's just the goodwill of other people that really care about us down here. This is everybody's favorite vacationing spot. This is the biggest national park in all of, you know, the United States. This is the vacation. This is like going to the beach, but in the mountains. So this is like, you know, a great place for people to come and visit. And everybody kind of like, once they come to Western North Carolina, they kind of like stick roots here, you know, and they always want to keep coming back. And they know that how good of a folk that, you know, the here in Western North Carolina are. So speaking of campers, like when we get these campers, it's just, you know, we got several different organizations that are bringing them in, but at the same time, you know, there's just small groups like grassroots folks like I am. You know, I have a partner in Ohio that we just fundraise for campers, and we buy them in batches to 3 to 5, and we bring them down and we start giving them to people.
That's honestly amazing. I've been impressed by the generosity and the community aspect down here.
Yeah.
And it seems like, and we've alluded to this earlier in the interview, that the community is kind of what's taking care of the community, whereas outside factors, things like FEMA, aren't necessarily picking up the slack that most Americans who've never faced a climate change disaster think, oh, FEMA will come in and help, or someone will help. But it seems the lesson to learn from Western North Carolina is a tight-knit community is what is necessary to come back from this.
Exactly. If it wasn't for everybody in the community banding together, I think that we would have a different outtake here in Western North Carolina. There's no doubt about it. You know, all our neighbors, all of our friends, all of their friends, and all of their friends, you know, banded together to bring back Western North Carolina from what it was to what it is now. What
are some of the biggest needs of the people of Western North Carolina?
Housing. Yep. Housing, staying warm, food, lots of propane and gas.
Everybody. People at home, a ding should go off every time someone says the word propane.
Yeah. It's expensive. And it's cold. This last week has been in the low teens, you know, and a family can go through a 20-pound propane a day. And that's anywhere from $26 to $60 a bottle.
How far is the area that you've been helping out in? Because when it's rare that this is on the news, but when it is on the news, you hear Asheville.
Yeah, so Merriam, North Carolina is our furthest east. Our furthest north has been Irwin and Del Rio, Tennessee. and then all the way up to Jackson County, which is Silva, and all the way down to Saluda, North Carolina, which is Batcave, Batcave, Chimney Rock, all that area down there.
Of all those, do all of those areas have similar issues, or does it vary greatly depending where you are?
It depends. It's a different disaster in each area, in my opinion. You know, the disaster was a little bit different up north, and in Burnsville it was way worse. And you know, from Green Mountain or Irwin, Tennessee, all the way down to Burnsville into the Swananoa River, it was really terrible there, just by the flooding and how fast the water was moving. It was different up here, but because we had just massive flooding, we didn't have the wind damage like other places. I mean, we did, but not as bad as those places that got the wind damage. And you know, the flash flooding that come off the mountains from Black Mountain down, and you know, the Tow River flooding like it did, and you know, it's just different everywhere you go.
And what I think is also something that I've learned on this trip, and I think people could take away, is that there's pockets of this area that are kind of untouched. There's houses that are completely fine. There's people whose lives were less affected. And then there's other people who are living an otherworldly disaster. And you don't really understand that until you're in it. Because like you imagine, kind of like a nuke. Everything gets hit. But the reality of it is different people are going to have completely different problems from one another.
Right. Yeah, Swananoa is a good example of that. I remember doing a mission down there in the first couple of days, and we were doing a welfare check with another organization, and we drove down the river, and then it was just chaos and madness. There was helicopters, and there was SAR teams, and there was, you name it, they were just everywhere. And then we made a left, and we drove up the road about 3/4 of a mile, and it was like completely untouched, like it was never been, it blew all of our minds. I got a picture of it. It's one of the most beautiful places that I took a picture of. And I was like, how did this happen? How did they, you know, there was like 2 trees down in his yard, and it was just an older man that they just hadn't had contact with, you know. But yeah, and it's like that everywhere. You know, if you go up to, you know, Green Mountain, and the river was so bad that it actually twisted the railroad tracks up, you know. It was, and then with the wind damage, all the trees that were down, you know, and the miles they had to cut through the roads just to get to certain places. And then like here in Haywood County, it was just one gargantuan flood. But at the same time, we had all the mountain communities, their roads washed out, landslides. You know, it was just different everywhere.
Is there a way that the people at home could help and support your relief efforts?
Yeah. Of course, send donations to whoever you believe deserves the donations.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, monetarily or, you know, with actually like hard goods like propane or buddy heaters or oil heaters or whatever you feel like sending.
Buddy heaters is a big one. We've heard that.
Yeah, they're okay. They've got their own little problems. We've kind of started reaching out to other things, like well, since everybody has power now, we're going to oil radiator heaters. They're electric, and they have a better heat, and they aren't as expensive to run as the buddy heaters are.
Got it.
Yeah, and then we've also started looking into diesel heaters, which runs a 1 gallon of diesel for 15 hours, which is highly efficient. And we've been experimenting with that one in a couple of different campers and with different people, trying to see exactly how efficient they really are. Plus they're cheaper to buy too. Instead of being almost $100, these are $70. So, and the fuel's only $3 for 15 hours of use.
You're giving people important knowledge.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you think people should learn from this situation, or people need to know about this situation? Is there any? Yeah.
It's still going on. Daily, we're finding new people that haven't been, you know, that are still living in tents, you know, that are still living in enclosed trailers. I just had a family right up the street we just found out about them. They've been living over 100 days in a 16-foot enclosed trailer, and we just got them a camper on Friday right before the storm hit. Yeah, there's hundreds of people like that. Some people say there's no tents, but they've moved on. They're even like going back to their old houses, sleeping where there's no power. They're still, it's just, there's so many people that are like that. And now, in the next couple of days, we run a chance of even more people being out like that.
I have a question that's perhaps naive. Just talking about like the FEMA evicting the hotel situation. What is the purpose of that from FEMA's perspective? Are they just like, it's done, like you guys are fine?
Yeah.
Like, is that the tone or the understanding? Because we've been interviewing people all day about this.
Yeah. And
it's never really hit me like the lunacy of like, okay, on this day, everybody's out.
Yeah. That's a fact. They're like, oh, you have a week. And it's just, instead of like bringing in some, some hard hitting people like the Corps of Engineers, which we're out here, but I'm talking about like consistently, or somebody that is that can manage this type of disaster. What they are doing is they're bringing people in for a week and then they're putting them back on the streets. That's doing absolutely nothing but giving them longer to think about their stress, but in a warmer environment. I just don't understand, it's like, let's keep putting Band-Aids on it and then like getting their hopes up and then ripping it back off every time, weekends.
Earlier today we spoke to Terry Ramey, who's a Haywood County council person? Commissioner. And he had told us about how he had to find property that fit FEMA's requirements. And he has, and he submitted it and just hasn't heard back. Whereas if that would have been quickly responded to, these people that if they had to evacuate would have somewhere to go in a hypothetical sense.
Yeah. That could easily be done. It's just, cutting through the red tape. And that's what I like about being a grassroots, organization is I don't have red tape. And when I want to get something done, we go get it done. So, we do have to kind of like, skirt some stuff every once in a while just to make sure that somebody's got bread in their belly or, a warm place to stay with a tent, a hot tent or a yurt or whatever. We have to do things like that, and with the government, of course, you have to have a plan for a plan and approval for his approvals and, and nothing ever gets done, and they just sit around and they're like, why are these people so upset at us? And I was like, well, it's, over 100 days, and there's, other than that last moment, I've seen FEMA twice out in our area. And it was one at Haven on the Hill, and they were just making sure that everybody had their paperwork filled out right. And and then when their rescue teams were at the bottom of that bridge, that's it. That's all I've seen.
And it's been 2.5, 3 months?
It's over 100 days. So.
And you'd think, Army veteran, like you helped land helicopters in a field to bring supplies in, that you would be someone that they'd want to communicate with.
I've yet to get one phone call from those people. So we've set up, supply routes. We set up communication networks. We've set up, LZs all over Western North Carolina. When I say we, I mean like everybody. Like this is Western North Carolina is filled with, veterans who have retired up here to, to live their retirement life. So when we all got together, it just started making things happen and making things happen real fast.
Well, Terry had also mentioned that this county is majority 65 plus. And not to guess your age, you don't look that age to me at all. Do you feel a sense of responsibility to take care of the older community here?
I bear that responsibility daily. I think that's what's keeping me in the game for the longest is, there's days where I'm tired, like we've seen some stuff, and we've been working and hearing stories, mentally and physically exhausted, but every day, when I feel that way, it's like, I was like, these people need me. If I don't get up, then somebody's not going to get a house, or if I don't get up, somebody's not going to get fed today. And, that weighs on me every single moment that I'm awake.
I think it's important to learn from people like you. Mm-hmm. How are you helping getting people housing? Like, what is the process like? Because how many people do you think you've helped get housing, if you had to ballpark?
30 families, 40, but probably 30 on just, about 30. 30 families and the 30 campers.
Yeah, what is the process of that?
So there's some organizations that have a heavier vetting system than we do. Mm-hmm. We have a vetting system, but we don't get as stringent because we know that people need stuff, and they need a place to live. Mm-hmm. But what we do is usually I get calls from other organizations. Hey, Tommy, do you have a camper? Or I'll call another organization. It's like, hey, do you guys got a camper? I just found a family that needs one. Then we'll talk with the family and we'll find out what their situation is. And when we find out what their situation is, and then we normally come with a camper behind it. And there's people that I work with has done way more. I just started getting into it about a month and a half ago, with bringing campers to Western North Carolina, with my friend Scott Kelly from Ohio.
Yeah, and when you say getting that, is there a process?
Yeah, so I call Scott and hey, Scott, I need you to fundraise. And Scott will fundraise. And he was like, all right, this is how much money that we have in Ohio, which are awesome people. They're one of the biggest helps that we've had down here in Western North Carolina is folks from Ohio. It's been incredible. But and he will go out and he'll buy campers that should cost $15,000, $16,000, and we're getting them for $1,500, and we're getting them for $2,000 and $4,000. It's the most expensive one we bought so far, and then usually once he gets these all cleaned up, he says, "Hey, I'll be down in 2 days," and he'll put a post out about the families who we're getting ready to help, and then he'll bring them down and we'll deliver them. We winterize them. We go ahead and pin them at the bottom so they stay warm. And that's basically the process. It's really nothing to it.
Have you experienced any hurdles to giving aid? Anyone trying to prevent you from doing anything?
No.
Good.
No.
That's good to hear, actually.
Yeah, no. Western North Carolina, I don't feel like that we've had any hurdles at all. That, I think we had a couple things we had to clear up a couple times. But not a hurdle, and I think it was just, we're good. Yeah, I was really happy with that. I think I've said that a couple times to a different newspaper, never in my life have I felt like that I've had the most support, in doing anything. It's been here in Western North Carolina. Well, everybody supports us.
Yeah. Like I said, before interviewing you, multiple people had mentioned Operation Rising Sun. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're here.
Yeah, we try to be. We don't just try to be. We are as honest as we can. In this game as you can be. Mm-hmm. We make sure that we're transparent, and people know what we're doing daily. I take pictures of our operations. Not to just brag on Facebook, but just to show people. This is what we've done today. 2 weekends ago we're on Haven on the Hill, and I had a group of 16 volunteers and from all over North Carolina and South Carolina, and we winterized 47 of them in 2 days.
We saw your work.
Yeah.
We saw the winterized campers up at Haven on the Hill, and Status Coup subscribers will recognize those campers from the live stream from when we were up there.
Yeah, we did all that. So, that's another thing that we do is I don't work with them all the time, but I do work with them on a daily basis. I go up there or I call James and see some of the things that he needs. If he's got any needs that I have that are available, I try to get them to him as soon as possible, get the gravel and whatever I can, I help out right there. Well, because it's my neck of the woods. It's my neighbors. So
how long have you been here?
In Western North Carolina? Yeah. 8 years.
When the hurricane happened in 2020, did you ever think something massive like this could happen?
Yeah. Because that was, we thought about it because the way the rivers, I fish a lot, I fly fish, and I go all over these mountains fly fishing, and the rivers have changed. You can go up there and see where it cut out a new gorge. like in Crusoe and Bethel and all these mountain rivers. And we had an idea that it was going to happen, but we didn't realize how bad to this extent that this could be even possible. So yeah, now we're like on edge almost every time it rains.
Yeah, we felt that. School was canceled today in some places, and it snowed before we even flew in on Friday. So and people we had spoken to warned us. They said, hey, people are going to be sensitive just because of the current weather, because they feel like trauma about weather events now.
Oh yeah, there's some PTSD in there, and like we all have it. Like 2 weeks ago it rained, and it rained the first time in since the hurricane a substantial amount. It rained just a little over 1.5 inches, and the way that the rivers are now, like it crested in Clyde where you were just at. Like I drove over the bridge 30 times watching it. I was like, oh, please don't crest. We were watching it rise, and just 1 inch of water crested in one area. And I was like, this is not going to be good when the spring comes.
Yeah, and not to be doom and gloom, but is there any talks about the upcoming hurricane season?
There's like, no, honestly, like we're all taking it day by day, trying to like figure out how, a long-term plan to, get through this. That's right now we're still catching up. I feel like that we're 2 weeks behind, and yeah, it's day-to-day operations.
Yeah, and that's completely reasonable.
Yeah.
There is no real game plan.
Not yet.
For when a situation like this happens. And wasn't this area considered a climate change safe haven?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be affected by...
Yeah, nobody knew this. It's the only thing that was different about this is like we do have a little bit wetter winters with rain. It's just a tiny bit warmer, so we're not getting as much snow as we should. Last few years has been like it. This is the first year since I've been back to North Carolina that it's actually snowed this frequent. So it's just rained mostly, and that's another thing that we were worried about this winter being as rainy as the prior winters. What was going to happen?
What have you been doing as a part of your hurricane relief? What are some of the biggest needs that you and Operation Rising Sun have been fulfilling?
Everything, actually. We've done a little bit of everything. We started out doing wellness checks, search and rescues, setting up LZs, which are landing zones for helicopters that are coming in, coordinating massive amounts of food from other states coming into the state of North Carolina, warehouse work. We've done, chainsawing. We've done it all. Like we've done it actually all. Our Operation Rising Sun's continuously doing what we need to do to help all the folks in Western North Carolina, no matter where they're at in the state. We're here helping, and we're going to stay in the game as long as we have to make sure everybody's taken care of. The state of North Carolina is Western North Carolina. I'm not too for sure exactly where we're going to be at in the next year. Like I said earlier, it's a day-to-day operation, and continued support is the biggest thing that we can have. Is making sure that we can, get out there and make the aid happen.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for having us here.
Appreciate you.
We appreciate you and all the work you do very much. My name is Jason Peters. We're here in Canton, North Carolina, on the ground doing hurricane relief coverage deep into the winter. Thank you for watching, and please consider subscribing for $5 a month to keep supporting on the ground independent journalism from Status Coup.
Just before I close out, do you know if anybody still missing?
Oh, yeah.
Into that? Because we're hearing people are still missing.
And the death toll thing. I was just trying to keep it lighter.
Yeah. No, it's okay. We can go to it.
I
don't know the numbers to be exact. I don't want to claim the numbers because I don't do that. Because it's insensitive to the folks that are.
I didn't get the feeling that you did want to.
No.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah,
a positive question.
Well, you can ask me whatever you want. I'll answer it as best of my ability. But
yeah, I'll just ask a couple. we've seen the death toll figure from the state of 105 deaths in North Carolina as a result of Hurricane Helene. We've had different people give different accounts of just what they've seen. And anecdotally, not officially, I could say, to my opinion, it seems like something is askew. What does your personal experience say to the 105 figure?
I agree with you wholeheartedly that it's something askew. I don't know the numbers exactly, but if you talk to, search and rescue teams that are still out there looking for those people because they're still missing, they'll tell you a different number. I'm not too for sure exactly what it is, but I think it's way over 105. What some of the people that are not taking into account is the homeless population that was in Asheville, North Carolina at this time. They were all living down on the river that are completely just been forgotten about. And I think that there was over 1,000 that were just on the river. And I don't have the numbers to confirm all that, but I believe wholeheartedly that a vast majority of those folks ended up in the lake.
And it's a difficult conversation to have because it's a sensitive subject. And obviously, the government figure should be an accurate figure, or should be a figure that, at least when you look at it, you don't go, no.
Yeah.
Because we interviewed someone today that said at the Blessing Barn in Swannanoa, she said that on where we were standing, 11 people died. Just right there. And by the state's calculation, that would be 1/10 of everyone in North Carolina who had died. And then she also said that she knows personally, not including that 11, 21 or 22. So that's 33%. And
there's more than that.
Yeah.
Way more in Swannanoa. And there was way more of that in the Rivers Arts District. I know for a fact there was more than that in Burnsville. And I know for a fact that going up into Green Mountain, there was quite a few folks too. And then in Irwin, Tennessee, there's a lot of people still missing. So I don't know the exact numbers, and I don't want to quote anybody because I don't know if they know the exact numbers because we're still looking for folks. But I mean, like it's getting harder and harder the longer that, the search teams are out there digging through the debris fields. They're not hitting on, whole bodies anymore. They're hitting on, pieces of bone, fragments of, of life that once was. And that's what people don't understand. And then there's, it goes through, like, the only way to identify all these is through a DNA process, and that takes forever. So unless somebody's like reporting somebody, the DNA process is not going to be fulfilled because they won't be able to compare it to nothing else.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of, once again, red tape and logistical issues are even affecting the reporting of, like, numbers.
Yeah, nobody's ever going to know, I don't think. It's my personal opinion. Like, I just think there's just too much that happened, and or just I just think there's just too many unaccounted for stories, I guess you could say. I just know for a fact that the homeless population is one of the hugest of all the numbers that could be reported right now.
And that makes sense. And yeah, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, because Asheville, like, most of those folks live on the river. Some of them, like, you can go down Asheville and, like, on any normal day, and there'd be homeless people everywhere, under the bridges, on the streets, down the streets, out on the corners looking for money, panhandling.
Yeah.
Almost every corner. You don't see that much anymore.
I can say from personal experience, I have not seen much homelessness since I came to Asheville. And also, it's hard to tell because there's people living in tents. So you can't go homeless because there's people living in tents. What is homeless now that the homes have been destroyed?
You don't know. You don't know. And we don't know. We go out in the cold and we give, I remember this one trip we went down and I was like, I know we need to go get down to Asheville. And I just got a supply of 10-degree bags in this when the winter started kicking off. And we traveled with one of my directors for Operation Rising Sun. Me, him, and my wife. My wife's a nurse, so she was with us just in case too. We drove down every street, literally in Asheville. We spent several hours looking for homeless folks, and we only found 2 on the street that night.
Yeah,
That's grim.
it is.
Because it used to not be like that at all. Like
And,
you could.
and that's usually a different sentence.
Mhm.
You are upset at the lack of homeless people, and
I'm upset that I have this deep suspicion that those folks that were on the street are now dead and buried in a debris field somewhere.
yeah,
That's grim, and that's like, and I hate talking like that because it's the truth, and it bothers me like every day, like just knowing that, because I go to the VA in Swannanoa, that's where the VA is at, and I know that on a certain strip of road that there's homeless vets that are on that road. I haven't seen, and I don't know where they went. So
yeah.
they're this is Buncombe County had one of the best plans for the homeless, taking care of the homeless, and they kind of liked living there, I guess. Like, I don't know, I don't want to say kind of like, don't quote me on that, but like it was just a good place for them to be.
Yeah.
So they were there, but they're not there anymore. So, and I worry about them, because a lot of those people had mental illnesses, and not only mental illness, but they were addicts with mental illnesses, and veterans that were homeless, and they're not there anymore, and I just don't know where they could be.
Yeah, and I'm biting my tongue here.
Go ahead.
Well, because it is all bad and it's tough to talk about, but that's especially upsetting because through this process, it feels like the government isn't really helping anybody, but the homeless population, addicts, people with mental illness are traditionally the people that the government cares the least about and arguably dislikes. And yeah, just the humanity of it is lacking.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's exactly what I would say too. Humanity is lacking, and it's bothering us all. Like going back to FEMA, like when they could easily pay for these folks, about a month or so into a hotel, let them at least get underneath their feet, and, they're not, they could, but they're not. Why? Who knows? And that's humanity, in my opinion. I don't think they care.
Yeah.
So there's no way, if they cared, they would get done.
And it feels like even getting on your feet would be more difficult now than ever because it's not like you can go get a job.
No, we deal with that every day. Like luckily I just got endorsed by NC Works, which is like Manpower here in North Carolina, to be an official job site for displaced people who are needing help getting on their feet, and they just go apply for this position, and they could come work with me on job sites for 40 hours a week, and and get paid for it. And one of my ride or die, his name is Jerry. He's been with me since the start, and he got displaced from work from the hurricane. Has been selflessly, sacrificing his time without pay, for this entire time, to help me and the rest of North Carolina, on the relief missions. And then he was one of the, just so happened I got linked up with this guy, and I said, Jerry, call this guy. And the very next morning, he found out he was going to be able to get paid for doing what he's doing now. So it was probably like one of the coolest things that I've done. I'm not done. I take that back. But
yes.
but had some sort of, foot in the door. I guess you can say. I don't know how to say that, but that was the coolest thing that's happened out of our organization was Jared getting to be paid to do what he's doing.
And once again, that's great insight for people. Like, there are programs, things pop up, and there are ways to get things done.
Yeah.
Finding them is half the battle. How long did it take you to find NC Works?
That was last week.
Yeah.
That was last week. We got the call, and we met with this guy, and he told us how we were going to be able to do it, and and it's working out. And I've already got several people that I'm going to try to bring in to, that have been displaced to give. Here's a camper, now here's a job. Come with me. Let's keep doing this.
That's
I don't get paid for it, of course, you know, but they do. And that's all that matters to me.
That's important work. And thank you again for talking with us. It's been a pleasure. Signing off for Status Coup. I already did this.